Thank you for joining us for part two for presentation and personal development. I'm Rolando. We wanted to continue to make our segue from our first point of personal development, which has to do with persistence, to look at our second point. We wanted to use this quote here as a segue into our second part. The cost of a win may include a few mistakes, a lot of hard work, and courage to keep going. We want to recognize that it's very important for us to be more mindful that if we are going to reach our goals, we have got to challenge ourselves consistently and continually until we get to where we're going. We've got to keep going. We've got to make it priority. Okay? So let's go now and examine our second point, which is rest. This is something that so many of us are guilty of not doing properly. We're not taking sufficient rest. We're not prioritizing rest. We make rest something that we do when we have the time. We make rest something that we do when our body forces us to do it. We are not making it something that is a necessity. We're not we're not putting it on our schedule as it relates to something that needs to happen or something that must happen. We sacrifice other things, or rather, we sacrifice rest to get other things done when we should be sacrificing other things to make sure we get sufficient rest. So, let's talk a little bit about the importance of rest and why rest is valuable. Daily relaxation and self care are essential. Daily relaxation and self care are essential. So, how are you taking care of yourself? How much time are you making to relax? Sometimes at the end of your busy day, how much time are you taking to relax? And sometimes we may say, I can't relax. I have kids, I have a husband, I have a wife, I have two jobs. Sometimes relaxation could start by when we get home, for example. We turn our ignition off and we just sit in our car for 5 or 10 minutes and just breathe in some fresh air and just ground ourselves before we move over into or the rest of things to do for the day. So we want to really make deliberate, intentional efforts to get the opportunity for that relaxation to occur. But we need to do it daily and we need to make it priority. It cannot and should not be an afterthought. Because remember, if we don't take rest, if we don't give our bodies sufficient rest, our bodies, be it known, is going to give it to us. How? It's going to shut down. And we're going to wonder what's going on. So we want to make sure that rest is essential. And we want to do it and do it properly and do it effectively. So, one of the things that we want to recognize is that we should not ignore the importance of play, and research has said that play helps with our psychological health. Yes, believe it or not. There is research out there now that's saying if we were playing more as adults, we're not talking about play dates for the kids. Maybe we need to start having some adult play dates where we're just playing, we're doing fun stuff. That's why they have coloring books now for adults, and they have places where adults can go. Sometimes you go to the park with your kids, go on the swing and take a swing. Go and play in the sandpit with your kids. Play with your partner at home. But play is important based on the research. Play brings joy. Yes, believe it or not, play brings joy. It promotes better problem solving because when we play, that happy hormone, the serotonin, it gets going. And so we're more relaxed and we make better decisions. Play promotes creativity and improved relationships. So sometimes the relationships that you're in, they may be filled with tension, they may be uptight because we are not making and taking time to play. we want to recognize the value of play, not just for our kids, but as adults, we need it as well. And so we must maintain virtue and integrity. This is something that's important. If we are going to pay attention to the importance of rest, virtue and integrity are important. We maintain virtue and integrity by eliminating self harming behaviors. So we want to break away from self harming behaviors so that we can maintain virtue and integrity. It's so important. And when we miss out on that, we become more and more consumed with things that are getting us into a rut more than how they normally would. So we want to work on maintaining virtue and integrity. And how we do that? We have to eliminate self-harming behaviors. So now we're going to look at what are some self-harming behaviors that we need to eliminate in order to establish this virtue. One of the big ones is we need to eliminate sleep deprivation. So many of us are really kicking against the rocks when it comes to sleep. We get very little sleep. Researchers said that we know we're in a danger zone when we're getting 6 hours or less sleep per night. So we want to seek to get better sleep. We have to stop starving ourselves and start getting sufficient sleep. Another self-harming behavior is drugs and alcohol use. And I would be bold enough to say excessive nicotine consumption. If you're smoking cigarettes excessively, it's a self-harming behavior as well. It's an addictive behavior. And if you want to look at a way to have better self-worth, you have to break yourself away from this dependency that you have on cigarettes and on drugs and on alcohol use, because it is self-harming. And personal development challenges you and it challenges me to put anything away that is going to interfere with my ability to be the best version of myself. I want to challenge something that I find, based on research evidence. There are many persons who have this belief now that someone who drinks alcohol is more attractive, is more sexy, is more appealing. And that is happening because social media has promoted it that way. So we want to break away even from that belief system and recognize that even if I'm not drinking or using drugs, I'm still appealing, I'm still sexy, I'm still valuable, and I want you to recognize that. Self-harming behavior of pornography. There are some persons who they participate in porn without even recognizing that they are harming themselves. They're destroying that natural tendency because they are prying on the dopaminergic process. And when they interfere with that dopamine process by appealing to the senses through porn, it interferes with their ability in other relationships. So we want to break away from pornographic habits. Then there is pessimism. Sometimes we're so pessimistic. I've heard of persons who they say, you know what, Rolando, when I live my life this way, when a disappointment comes, I feel better. But if I'm optimistic and a disappointment comes, I feel bad. Being pessimistic is a self-harming behavior. It's as if we're speaking negatives into our lives. As we talk about the law of diminishing returns, it's like we put pessimism out into the atmosphere and it comes back to us. We want to break away from those self-harming behaviors. Then there's also living life without boundaries. Anything goes. We allow ourselves to be exposed to environments that is not helping us to grow, That's helping us to feel better about ourselves, because many of us, we confuse a want with a need. We believe that this is something that we need when it's really something that we want. A need oftentimes can be measured when it comes to a life or death. Like, you need to go to the doctor to do a surgery, because if you don't do the surgery, things will get worse. You need to get some money in order to pay your bills. That's a need. Okay? You need to drink water in order for you to stay hydrated. That's a need. But sometimes we put things in the category of a need when it's really a want. And if it's a want, it's not life or death. We can do without it. And so oftentimes we have got to stop telling ourselves that we need a drink. We don't need a drink. We want a drink. I need to get cigarettes. No, you don't need cigarettes. You want to have cigarettes because it makes you feel good, or it's cool, or you have to satisfy that nicotine rush, because if you don't have it, you get that nicotine withdrawal symptoms. But you don't need it. You think you do, but it's not a need. It's a want. The next thing that we want to look at is lack of exercise. If we're not engaged in exercising and making it habitual, our bodies are being deprived of that necessary process whereby through exercise we allow our bodies to release cortisol, the stress hormone, and we feed oxygen to our brains so that we can get into a better thinking place. So we want to exercise a minimum of 15 to 20 minutes per day, or even every other day. Is very, very useful. Another self-harming behavior is dehydration. And someone may say, "Oh, I'm not dehydrated. I drink so much. I drink so much juice, or I drink pop, or I'm always having my coffee." That's not the same as having natural water. So, are you drinking enough water? And if not, why not? That's a part of your responsibility if you're talking about personal development, because the body is 70% water. So if the body is dehydrated, then we have headaches and backaches, and we have all different sometimes symptoms without recognizing. That is because we are dehydrated. Another self-harming behavior is not showering often. We shower every 2 or 3 days. Why? Why are we doing this to our bodies? Isn't it wonderful to get that rejuvenating experience that lifts us into a new realm and opens us up to just having that wonderful experience of feeling that water, just massaging and running on our bodies, the lather of that soap, the cream that we put on our skins, the shampoos that we use in our hairs, all those things that we do, it's a part of personal development. And it keeps us in a sane, safe space. And so many of us struggle with the West syndrome. Work, eat, shower, sleep. That's how we live our lives. We work, we eat, we shower, we sleep. And if we're honest with ourselves, many of us only do 2 of the 4. We work and we sleep. We eat occasionally and we shower when we have the time. So we're missing out on so many things. We want to challenge ourselves to break away from that and do something different. We want to break this West syndrome. We want to move into another realm where we have sufficient balance so that we're able to function and function effectively. And so we want to remember this, that quitters find refuge in excuses, but winners keep going until they find solutions. So you should not be a quitter. As you see all those self-harming things that's highlighted, I want you to go back and challenge yourself to do something differently that's going to help you to become the best version of yourself. Let's do reflection now. Let's do reflection. Reflection question 1 is, what are some psychological results of self-care? What are they? And if you want to pause your video and do this exercise, go ahead. Okay? Question number 2, what is self-care? Rather, why is self-care necessary for personal development? Reflection question 3. What was alluded to by researchers as an asset for better functionality? Remember, we talked about what research says. That's an asset. I want you to capture that and seek to live that. Number 4, what is the West syndrome and how do we combat it? How do we combat the West syndrome? Big point number 5 for reflection is outline the self-harming behaviors that you need to work on. Whatever it is, it might not have been mentioned on my list of things, but maybe you can identify something else that you need to stop doing. How about starting right away? We're talking about personal development and becoming the best version of yourself. And so, as we segue and move towards our third presentation piece, we wanted to have you consider this question. How do I become the best version of me? What do I need to do to become the best version of myself? And so I want you to reflect on this question, think about this as we segue into our third presentation. We look forward for you joining us shortly. Okay?